Hello everyone, I'm Nam Hee Kim, General Manager of Gofron Korea. Gofron is a global business language training company. Business is a composition of constant communication. Therefore, communication is a tool that must be used well with mature and respectful manners. We are offering a business language training program to global companies and providing fresh questions and insight through webinar at the same time. To assess their journey, we have put together this remarkable event. Today, a very notable and special speaker, Dr. Joshi Venugopal, President of Novartis Korea, will talk about a career journey. Today's title is Who Grows, Who Stagnates, and Why. Our speaker Josh will share his perspectives on this topic. He holds a PhD degree in cell biology from University of Basel, Switzerland, and is a graduate of General Management program from Harvard Business School. During the session, please leave your question in the chat room. After the lecture, we are going to have a Q&A session. Please welcome Josh. Josh.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Namhi, and also thank you, GoFluent, who does an excellent job in improving linguistic skills all around the world. Let's start today's discussion by going back in time to 325 BC. Alexander the Great, the Macedonian king, was on a world conquest. He conquered many parts of the world and reached a region which is now between India and Pakistan. His army was very tired, and he heard that there was some local resistance. So he decided to go and meet the local leaders. When Alexander went to meet the leaders, he was surprised. They did not have glamorous clothing that he had. They were naked. They did not have any wealth. They were detached to material goods. But people claimed they were wise. The Alexander and his entourage called them gymnosophists, meaning naked philosophers. They were probably yogis. The leader of that group asked Alexander, "Who are you? And what are you doing?" Alexander replied, "I'm Alexander, and I'm conquering the world." And Alexander asked the same question to the gymnosophist. He said, "I am Dandamis, and I am experiencing nothingness." Now, if you look at the gymnosophist, he was schooled in the ancient Indian philosophy. He read Upanishads, not Greek mythology. While Alexander thought we only lived once and was in a hurry to achieve things, gymnosophists believe in rebirth. There was a continuous cycle of life and death, and therefore he was relaxed. While Alexander wanted to achieve immortality, the gymnosophist wanted the opposite. He was taught that the ultimate goal in life is to escape this cycle of birth and death and get salvation or moksha or nirvana, however you want to call it. So why am I telling this story? The way we lead our life is based on our subjective truths. We believe our subjective truths are very objective and everybody else is subjective. A third person, let's say a scientist who is very materialistic, could come and say, neither of them is right. There is no proof for Elysium or there is no proof for rebirth. So it all depends on your perspective. So the way we lead our lives is based on our subjective truths, what we believe in, and this is shaped by the stories our parents tell us and the narratives that predominates in our community also shape our thinking. I am also going to argue that our career journey is also shaped by our own subjective truths. But importantly, they may change over time. And as a consequence, the way we work and the way we lead also changes. I see three stages in a typical career journey, and I'll explain them one by one. From the time we start in kindergarten till the time we finish our advanced degrees, we are constantly told what success is and how to get there. Success is often defined to us, mostly by our parents and society at large, as good job, lot of money, and having a family. And the way to get there is education. If you study hard, you will get good grades. If you get good grades, you will get good job. And if you get good job, you will get wealthy. And if you are wealthy and if you have a good job and a good education, hopefully someone will marry you and you can provide for them, and the cycle continues. This becomes our subjective truth. So you think about our student life, it's all about acquiring knowledge. And not just acquiring knowledge, it is also to be better than everybody else. If you get the same grade like everybody else, it's hard to stand out and succeed. So you have to be better intellectually to stand ahead and succeed and win in all the competitive exams. And there is no incentive to collaborate. If you collaborate during the exam, it's called cheating, right? So it's all about individual effort. With this subjective truth in mind, we study, we eventually get a job, we are all excited. Then we learn that what we learned in academia is not sufficient. And sometimes it can even be useless, and you need to acquire work-related knowledge. So the success in early career is dependent on acquiring the knowledge and delivering on the tasks. And you get rewarded in the organization as you were rewarded in the school, and you move up in the career ladder, and then the subjective truth starts to change. So this is the first stage, which I call the IQ stage. Then you will learn that companies all around the world spend huge amount of time and effort to tell you that what got you here won't get you there. And you're like, what? It is challenging the fundamental notion that you grew up with in your entire life. The key message here is that behaviors need to change. That means you need to stop doing certain things. For example, stop speaking when you are angry. You will see in the book of Marshall Goldsmith. Don't tell the world how smart you are. You don't have to prove yourself. It antagonizes people. And then you have to start doing certain things, like say thank you more often, be grateful. So the emphasis is on behavioral change. And it may not be something fundamental, but it is how you come across to other people. You will hear that as you grow up in the career ladder, it is increasingly about managing people, and technical skills and IQ matter less. In my career, I have received many such advices. I was told that Google has more knowledge than any of us, so knowledge is not much differentiating. Someone told me I hire people who are smarter than me so they can tell me what to do. Smart people were commodity, easily available, right? And if you're smart, you just hire smart people. I remember several years ago that a trainer advising us that leadership is all about managing emotions and the concept of EQ. I was told that we have so many smart people like you around, Joshi. What we want is someone who can bring people along with them. So this is what shakes your primary belief in the knowledge and the independent contribution. And you will see people with higher IQ rise up in organizations. So it is not just theory, this is what happens. Initially, some of us are in denial and blame it on politics. Finally, most of us accept it, and it starts to reward us and our career journey forward. So that is the second stage, the EQ stage. So as per the narrative our parents have told us, we have made it, right? We are successful. We have good job, good savings, we have a family, and we are rising in the organization. So we have all the external status that was expected of us. Then very often comes a stage where we start to feel some sort of insufficiency. You have, from an external point of view, everything to make you happy, but sometimes you feel something is missing. And many times the beginning of that stage start with some sort of suffering associated with the loss. It could be a career setback, like being passed on for a job, or being a victim of a restructuring. It could be a health challenge for yourself. It could be loss of relationship. We thought, and we tell this story to ourselves, that we did this career journey because for our family. But then you realize one day that you're very close to a divorce. Or it could simply be a midlife crisis. So many things can trigger, called as SQ stage, the spiritual quotient stage. So this is a very difficult transition to make. It is a much more difficult transition than from the IQ to the EQ stage. Firstly, you are mostly confused because you have a crisis, you don't know what to do, and people go through a lot of suffering and pain to make this transition. And this SQ stage has some characteristics which I would like to explain. The people in this stage are driven less by the extrinsic power and are more driven by the intrinsic power. They gain energy from within, not from outside. They seek less approval from outside, and hence they are very confident. Because of that, the people in SQ not necessarily always end up in the highest position in an organization. Many times they do, but sometimes they don't. Because that is not what motivates them. However, they remain very influential in the organization. Why? Because they are a bit selfless. They have sound judgment. They are fair. They have a listening ear, and they have high sense of integrity because they don't answer to anyone else other than their conscience. And they don't feel the pressure to conform. They don't play by the rules, but they are not open rebels because they really care about other people. They are spiritual, and therefore they develop their own style without rebelling. They are typically skilled at coaching, helping people answer their own questions. They tend to be mindful. They don't spend the time worrying about what happened in the past or what will happen in the future. And most of us spend our life doing just that. We are either agonizing of what the traumas in the past or what could go wrong in the future and forget to live the present. The SQ people in SQ stage are more mindful, and they enjoy the small little things in front of them, and therefore they're more joyful. They look at a flower when they are passing. They taste the food better than we do. However, they may be confused because they are still in a reflective stage and they don't have all the answers. And they struggle to let go their ego completely. So people in the SQ stage, on one hand, they may not chase the positions of power or organizational hierarchy, but at the same time, sometimes they feel, are they losing the battle? So they have all these confusions inside of them. The first two stages are driven by extrinsic power. You acquire IQ and you sharpen your EQ skills because you want to succeed. And the stage SQs are driven by the intrinsic power. They seek intangible rewards. In the first two stages, you are all building up knowledge, power, wealth, credentials. And in the stage SQ, it's all about letting go. You care less about recognition. You care less about tangible rewards. The first stage of IQ, you gain power through knowledge. You are told that pen is mightier than the sword. The stage EQ, you get power through achievement, because people with high EQ and IQ, they are typically high achievers. They succeed in organizations. So you gain a lot of power through achievement. Stage SQs, they achieve a lot of inner power through reflections. While the stage IQ and EQ build skills and relationship respectively, the SQs accept the world as they are to a large extent, and they are very skilled in dealing with reality and enjoying the reality. IQ stage, as I told, is a lot about I as an individual. The EQ is about we, but it is a tribal we. It is a we where we are talking about my company versus the other company, my department versus the other department, my family versus the neighbors. But in stage SQ, we start to see that we are part of this cosmos and we are all the one. And you start to feel that you as an individual is beyond your physical body, and you transcend into something larger than your physical body and your sensations. Now, spirituality should not be confused with religion. You can be spiritual without being religious. And that is a point I wanted to make. So in an organization, what do we need? Do we need IQs, SQs, or EQs? I would argue that you need all three of them, and there is a place for all three of them. IQs are typically the ones who are in the early stages of their career, like the interns, who gets the task accomplished, and it is very, very important to accomplish tasks. And people with high EQ often provide as leaders. And then there are people with SQ. They often form the conscience of the organization. They're the ones who can say truth to the power. They are the ones who prevent us from getting into integrity issues. So they have a very, very important role. And because they don't chase power, they become a secure base for many of the employees. So there are these two transitions. The first transition is more easier, but it can also be inhibited if you have mental rigidity and if you don't accept the need for a higher EQ. And some people do get stuck in that stage, and that limits their career journey. The second transition, which I said is much more complicated, is inhibited when you have comfort, because you are in a comfort zone. You are a high achieving leader. You have all the material necessities in the world, and it's a comfort zone, and you find it hard to move out of it. Or sometimes you're lost. You don't know what else to do because you're confused. But that transition could be made. So this is my last slide. The title of my presentation was who grows, who stagnates, and why. And this graph is a pictorial representation of the answer. As you can see in the very beginning, it is our IQ that peaks and that stagnates. Then the EQ starts to pick up, and it also stagnates at the later stages of life. You will see that IQ even declines after a certain age. Our mental capacity goes down. We can get less memory, and the cognitive abilities start to decline after some age. And then you will see that the spiritual quotient start to increase. And you readjust your beliefs, and it gives you more joy. You become more wonderful to be around. And since you change your goals, the way you measure your own life changes, and that provides some sort of sweet intoxication to yourself. You could either have these transitions because you're forced to do that through suffering, or you can initiate these before encountering these losses. That the smart ones, the ones with the high IQ, will think about these transitions proactively and be prepared for it when the right times come for you. Thank you very much for listening. It was a pleasure.